I've just been reading Daniel Levitin's book. I heard there was a secret chord. This whole concept of whether there is something sort of at the heart of humanity, some secret, some formula, some elixir, something or other that has to be discovered. I think the whole concept of consciousness and life is obviously that we have to sow it for ourselves. We have to plant the seeds and cultivate, and you know, it's like dendrites and axons in the brain, named after tree branches, because that's, you know, they grow up and so on, and they can flourish when we're young. There's so much new stuff happening, and when we have an experience, we fire that experience, and if we do it again and again, we wire that experience, and that's what particularly the left brain is all about. It's cognitive, these cogs in the wheel. It's Lego-like. It attaches to logic and rationality and so on. The right brain is more the imagination. It's more the big picture. And if you want the big picture on all left and right brain, read Ian McGilchrist. I think about 1,600 pages I read of Ian McGilchrist on the brain, left and right. And, you know, when people have lesions, strokes on the left side of the brain, what's that mean, or the right side of the brain? I've written about a lot of people who've had strokes and similar things. Stroke of Insight is one such book by a neuroanatomist who knew she was having a stroke when she was having the stroke, and it sort of maps out. It's interesting, all the people seem that I've profiled seem to be liberated by, they change from this sort of left brain cognitive person to this right brain artistic person, literally, I believe, once they've seen the light. But at any rate, left and right is important. Daniel Hebb's concept of, or is it Donald Hebb? Donald, I believe, of firing and wiring, so that you have this experience and you fire it and then you wire it again and again, and things that become big parts of your life become entire realms of firing and wiring. And that's important, because this, you know, if something, and the other thing, as we grow, there's sort of synaptic pruning going on all the time. So the brain's sort of ready to destroy or give up on certain areas of the brain. Let's say a relationship of 10 years goes bust. Over the next few years, that relationship is sort of rooted out and begins to die in the brain, and this is the point. Certain areas of the brain, particularly those that amplify the human spirit and are uplifting, which is usually the art things, music and painting and dance. Dance is very liberating. Music, very liberating. Art can be very liberating, depending on the stylization that you approach art with. And the other thing so we've got the left and right brain, we've got firing and wiring concepts, and these, you know, axons that become myelin coated. These are like roots in the brain, from the brain through the body, and they become expedited in a way that if it's a high maintained road, myelin coated gets thicker and thicker. But then, like I say, if it ends up being vacated, that area of the brain, then all that stuff sort of disintegrates. Another thing I wanted to point out, though, is the power of the brain. Here, it's not just little connections, Lego connections, it's the infusion of the psychiatry involved. The downward psychic pressure shapes us, who we are and what we are, these experiences growing up, how we've been abused, or how we've got, you know, a pat on the back or whatever. These automatically shape our appreciations, our apprehension of reality, and we tend to, you know, take the shape of our psychological and emotional selves And we have to interface that with reality to be able to just keep a head above water in terms of our own mental health. But for me, cancer and just about everything is sort of an inflammation that can originate in the mind. If you think about placebo and nocebo, I've mentioned several times a Parkinson's study done in Australia where this artist fellow, he had a ranch, and I remember he's riding on his horse and so on. He's in pre-Parkinson's study, and it turned out that I think the study was, let's say, 100 days long. There was the control group, the placebo group, and the people who potentially could get that Parkinson drug were warned that it, there could be certain side effects associated with that drug, let's say constipation, fever, exhaustion, whatever it was, I can't remember. But he went through the whole study, accumulating very specifically, seemingly, some of the side effects of the trial drug, only to find out that he, in the end, had the placebo. And I think the placebo, which really, even with the biggest painkillers of them all, morphines and opiates, the thing is that the placebo is almost as strong, and particularly doctors with a bedside manner seem to have healthier results. There's all sorts of implications when it comes to what actually constitutes placebo or nocebo. What makes you feel like you're going to be a healed person if you take this pill, and it's just a sugar pill, and yet you get better. The power of the mind to manipulate and to do it with such specificity as in the Australian study. Think about it. You imagine you're having these symptoms and you get these symptoms. Others, you imagine that they're getting better and they get better. And what is it that, that triggers that mechanism? So these are the things there are many more things in terms of autism, extreme male syndrome, Asperger's, and other things, and cures and so on. Parkinson's often a condition of Reichian defense armor that a person strangulates and suffocates their own emotional well-being, and that tightening of, at any rate, that's got something to do with stuff I've written about in the past. And I just want to make sure that left-right brain, firing and wiring, the whole psychology, downtown, we fire and wire in terms of electrical. We get this brilliant idea, this light bulb comes on, and then that affects our neurochemistry, our biochemistry, so that as we become more fired and wired, go to bowling, take up bowling, become more entrenched in the culture of bowling or going to football games or whatever, we fire and wire that, and there's an infinite amount of firing and wiring on the left side of the brain. For example, let's take the Wright brothers. When they were around, there weren't too many books on aviation. Now every plane has its own aviation manuals and so on and so forth. And there's, thousands of books being written on having, been written on aviation since way back then. So that's how that territory is proliferated. It's all left brain territory. The left brain sort of the file, as McGilchrist would say, it's supposed to be the master and the emissary. The right brain delegates certain authorities to the left brain because it's very finite. It knows how to deal with coordinates and if-then situations and sequences and so on. And that's the thing about left brain and right brain. If you think about Rain Man, autism, and think how his attention span goes right to those spilt toothpicks or straws, he can't really change how his mind works. We're all prisoners of how our minds work. And with autism, if you look at Daniel Tammet, called the Brain Man, who could learn language, Icelandic language in a week and be interviewed on national television. He can't remember what the face of his lover looks like. He has to, take a picture in his wallet and match that up with who's picking him up at the airport. He can't imagine or hypothesize, but he can recite pi for 4.5 hours. And he's got incredible, phenomenal memory. It's like Rain Man. He can read 22 novels or memorize word for word 22 novels, but in the end he doesn't know anything about the people in the novel. So it's like this dimension of human nuance and imagination and how people overlap, and I think that's important. I was going to go on about Hamlet, and the do re mi's don't get poured in there as a scale and a structure from which then things can grow forth. So you don't want to hurry those structures, the architecture of the human mind. We don't want to start that too early before the mind has some sense of grasping what it is in an intuitive and natural fashion. And if there's a study Simon Baron-Cohen did at MIT, where if your parents were both in mathematics, math professors, whatever, the chance of you being autistic were 8% higher. Because you see, this arithmetic is the very thing that rules out. If you think arithmetic's going to get you through a dark night of the soul, I don't think so. So people who think architecture or arithmetic is the language of God, I don't think you could be more wrong. The language of God is the imagination. And Einstein said that the imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge, you can build rafters between, this section and that section, and you can link all this stuff up, but you can't, make this trajectory out of what has become an ensconced set of frameworks and parameters. I'm suggesting that, I guess, to Daniel Levitin, that maybe music doesn't need structure immediately. I'm putting these pieces of music up. I picked up some stuff to access music. I don't know a stick of music. I've written lots of songs and whatnot, which I will also put links to. But as far as my wife can read music and write music and plays violin and guitar and keyboard and so on, I play with those things.